Hey everybody, what's going on? I am Gregg Sussman. Happy Friday, alongside Jim Sonis of FanDuel. We're here to talk about the last round pick of your season-long fantasy football drafts. What's up, Jim?
I'm all good, Greg. It's going to be a very interesting couple of days here with roster cutdowns. We've already seen some movement today with Adrian Peterson and Dario Gumbawale being cut. So there's going to be some changes across the fantasy football landscape. But I think that these guys we're discussing today are players who are in positions where when we're talking 2 weeks from today, they may have very much different value than what they have right now. So I'm interested in these guys as players whose value could fluctuate a lot in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, the stock's going to go up for some of these guys and potentially down depending on what happens on cut day. You know, it was just a couple of days ago that we as fantasy owners, we were nervous about the Chiefs signing Leonard Fournette to back up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It didn't happen, which left just what we knew in Kansas City as, well, what we know. So everyone talked all draft season about DeAndre Washington backing up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And maybe that's true, but he's not exactly a big back. He's a passing down back. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire ever goes down, it's probably going to be Daryl Williams that steps up in his plate. Daryl Williams costs you nothing in drafts right now, going at 207.7, essentially the last pick. Why is it important for you, Jim, to go out and grab Daryl Williams?
Yeah, I think for me, Greg, I want to try to find ways to get late exposure to really good offenses. And all three players we're talking about today fit that mold. Daryl Williams is in an ambiguous situation because I was on board with DeAndre Washington for the entirety of the summer. You know, I thought he was a very interesting guy, but it seems like the beat reporters are saying that Kansas City likes Daryl Williams a lot. Not to use him above Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but to have him as that number two back. And that number two back in Kansas City is valuable for multiple reasons, because even last year when Damian Williams was fully healthy and playing really well, his snap rate would be around 30% or 70%. So there were still about 30% snaps for a second running back to go to, get some targets, get some carries. That's probably going to be the case this year as well in order to conserve Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We also don't know what Clyde Edwards-Helaire's role is going to be. I would expect it to be a very good role, which is why I'm comfortable taking him in the first round, but there is still some unknown there, and we should account for some unknown and potentially be open to using other players who may get themselves on the field. It sounds like, again, Kansas City likes Daryl Williams, and like you said, there is that upside. If something were to happen to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Daryl Williams could have a really big role in an offense led by Patrick freaking Mahomes. So give me that for the last pick every single time. We don't know what Williams' role will be. But again, like you said, if it's not that good, who cares? Move on and go elsewhere. So Daryl Williams seems like he may be the number two back in Kansas City, and that is well worth more than the last pick in your draft. So if he's still there, I'm absolutely taking him.
Last year, the apple of everyone's eye in Kansas City wasn't Damian Williams. It was Daryl Williams, because you thought he had an opportunity to break out. And if things don't go right for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, well, maybe this year will be that opportunity for Williams to break out. And if he doesn't, well, you get rid of him, because the cost is nothing. It's 207.7. Williams, draft him with the last pick, or don't, but then you'll regret it. Maybe. Let's go over to Baltimore, where, again, it's, as Jim mentioned, you want cheap pieces to the best offenses in the NFL. A few weeks back, we talked about Christian Kirk for that reason. It didn't cost you much to get a small piece in the Arizona Cardinals offense. That's exactly what we're doing here with Baltimore and Miles Boykin. Sure, everybody's going to want Mark Ingram. Everyone's in on Hollywood Brown and Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. But Miles Boykin's going to have a role here. As he gets more accustomed to what they're doing with the Ravens, I think Boykin's role is going to expand, and now's where we can get him for nothing.
Yeah, Miles Boykin checks a lot of boxes outside of just being a guy who gets his exposure to this Baltimore offense. He is also athletic, and he had a decent profile coming out of college. So there were some reasons to believe that Miles Boykin could be a successful NFL player from Jump Street. That obviously did not happen last year. They preferred to go with some of the veterans at wide receiver. But Boykin now, heading into year number 2, has been getting some positive buzz in camp, and we can reasonably expect him to be running with this first-team offense. So he is athletic. He is young, moving to a bigger role on a really good offense. You could push back on this by saying, well, Baltimore is a run-heavy offense, and that's very true, and they will be run-heavy again this year. However, it's hard to see them being as run-heavy as they were last year. You're not going to dust everyone 54-0 over the course of an entire season. If we get that regression within the scoring differential for Baltimore, it means they're going to pass more often. And when they do pass more often, it's going to allow other guys outside of Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews to be relevant within this offense. I would think that Miles Boykin, outside of the running backs, would be next up on that list. So it's getting me a guy who fits well in this offense because of the speed he has. He has an interesting profile, and he gets me exposure to this Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson's right arm, and I will take that every single time. So once again, Miles Boykin just checks a lot of boxes, and I think is someone we should target and kind of see what his role is early on this year.
J.K. Dobbins is going to cost you way more as that handcuff, of course, to Mark Ingram and another popular rookie. But Miles Boykin is talented. Miles Boykin gives you the exposure, and he's intriguing. We liked him last year, and he costs less now. Let's take a shot on Miles Boykin, especially with the cost being so low. In Los Angeles, specifically with the Rams, the one rookie everybody's talking about is Cam Akers. Trying to figure out where he fits with Malcolm Brown and with Darrell Henderson. But nobody's really talking about Van Jefferson at all. And I understand that. You have Robert Woods ahead of him. You have Cooper Kupp. And you have other players that are in that mix as well. But Van Jefferson may be the most talented of these groups. Certainly more talented than Josh Reynolds, who we've waited and waited and waited on. Every time he gets an opportunity to step up, he doesn't. So maybe Van Jefferson will. Cooper Kupp didn't go in the right direction in the second half of last year as Tyler Higbee stepped up. So maybe Van Jefferson will get an opportunity in a high-powered Sean McVay offense. It's possible, right, Jim?
Absolutely. And I think the reason that I want to get exposure to this offense is like we talked about Jared Goff, where they're probably going to be a fast-paced team as always, and they're going to have to score a lot of points because that defense really could struggle given all the pieces they have lost there since the end of last year. So I think the Rams have to score points. But if I want to get exposure to this team outside of Jared Goff, there aren't a lot of ways to do so in the later rounds. Van Jefferson is one of those guys. And again, based on the beat reporting we've seen so far this year, it seems like there is a decent chance that Van Jefferson opens the year as the number 3 wide receiver within this offense. And it also makes sense because the scouting report on Van Jefferson coming out was that he was a route technician. You know, he comes from a family that has coached wide receivers. So he's been, living this position for his entire life. He was also an older prospect, which could allow you to think maybe he'll pick up the offense more quickly, become more acclimated to the NFL in rapid fashion. We talked about Cam Akers a lot because the Rams invested a lot of draft stock in that guy, but they did the exact same thing in Van Jefferson. He was also a second-round pick for this team. So he has draft capital. He is tied to an offense we expect to score a lot of points. The beat reports have been good, and he seems like a guy who should have an easier transition to the NFL given his pedigree and given his age. I think that is really intriguing. Like, if we get Van Jefferson starting within this offense in week 1, he is going to be a high-priority waiver add. So what you do is you just add Van Jefferson now via your draft, and so you're not fighting everyone else on the waivers to get Van Jefferson later on. I think there's a decent chance he winds up having a fantasy viable role within this offense, and I'd love to get out in front of that. He checks a lot of boxes. He was kind of a concerning prospect because he didn't run at the combine, didn't have great market shares of Florida, and he was older, but some of those things do play into his favor for year 1 in the NFL. So I want to take advantage and get him on my teams now rather than trying to get him against everyone else later on.
And I think that's super sound advice. Rather than having to spend all of your fab on a guy like a Van Jefferson, who we can predict it now, we can see it now where the role could be in a high-powered, we hope, offense with the Rams, led by potential MVP Jared Goff. That's what you want when you get Van Jefferson at the last pick of your draft. There you have it. Those are all of the late-round flyers, or not late-round, last-pick flyers that we want to make sure you are grabbing. Jim, next week, it's time to start looking at the schedule, man. The NFL is here. We got a ton of DFS to get to, a ton of season-long as well. It is going to be fun. We're there, man.
The next time we talk, Greg, there will already be one game in the NFL season in the books. Like, that's wild to me. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you have a fantastic Labor Day weekend, and then we are all in on week 1. It's going to be a fun ride.
You mean the last time we talk in front of people, Jim? Because it's important that I talk to you before the other last drafts that I have. So the last time we talk in front of people is right now until after next Thursday, opening night, or we will talk on Friday and give you some more stacks for the weekend. So for Jim Sonis, I am Gregg Sussman. Good luck in this final weekend of your drafts. Let us know if you need help. Get at us at Twitter, and we'll see you back here next week for more FanDuel Hurry Up.